Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Pnawn da. I'm Adrian Roberts, Chair of NFWI Wales, and a warm welcome to you all to our Stakeholders event with Joyce Watson, our Minister of the Senate, focusing on the right of women to lead their daily lives free from fear of violence and abuse. Welcome also to our speakers this afternoon, James Williams, Chief Executive Officer of the Welsh Athletics, Ben Marrett, a student at Cardiff University and captain of the Wales University Football Club, Councillor Caro Wild, who is a White Ribbon Ambassador and a Cardiff Council Cabinet Member for the Strategic Planning and Transport, and Mark Heckerty, founder member of the WCID. What can I do? Sadly, Becky Ricketts, President of NUS Wales, is unwell and will not be able to join us today. And we wish Becky a speedy recovery. Before we start, I would like to remind you to remain muted unless you are invited to ask a question or make a comment. To respect everyone's privacy, please could I ask you that you do not take any photos during the event. Please switch off your camera if you do not wish to be visible to other participants. I would also like to make you aware that we will be recording the event. The Stakeholder event forms part of the Not in My Name campaign, set up in 2012 in the partnership with Joyce Watson MS. Not in My Name involves WI members across Wales getting involved in recruiting male ambassadors from their communities to speak up against male violence against women. Some of you may have joined us last month for our Stakeholders events to launch this year's campaign, where we discussed the impact of gender-based violence on children and young people. This afternoon's event is discussing the rights of women to lead their daily lives free from fear of violence and abuse. Tragic events such as the murder of Sabina Mesa and Sarah Everett have shone a spotlight on male violence against women and girls, and the need for men to be held accountable for their action. The murders of these women, whilst going about their daily lives, resulted in an outpouring of emotions by the public: anger, grief, disbelief, just to name a few. And as the evenings draw in, how many women on this call would feel comfortable exercising alone on a dark evening? How many women might avoid an evening out with friends if it means that they have to walk home on their own or have to change their walking routes to avoid poorly lit footpaths? How many women have avoided a local park due to fears about their safety and instead take a longer route? How many women avoid the need to travel by public transport on their own? And how many women feel able to attend a festival without the fear of unwanted attention? Everyone should have the freedom to get on about their daily lives without worrying about their safety. In public spaces, in their home, in schools, university, the workplace, and online. Yet research published by UN Women in March of this year found that 70% of women in the UK have experienced sexual harassment in public. At our Stakeholders last month, we heard from Katie, an advocate from the Girl Guiding UK, who told us that 80% of girls and young women surveyed did not feel safe when they went out alone due to fear of being harassed. Their research also found that 53% of girls did not feel that boys understood what was and what was not appropriate behaviour towards them. In response to concerns about the safety of women and girls in public places, we have seen various introduced. And for example, in August, a new campaign, Zero Tolerance to Sexual Harassment, was launched by Network Rail, Transport Police and Crime Stoppers. As stated on the campaign's website, we should all be free to travel when and where we like without feeling unsafe, violated or intimidated. During lockdown, the running comments took action in response to sexual harassment faced by women exercising alone. And we have also seen students, community and groups of men speaking out. We will hear examples from our speakers later. Whilst women at this moment leave the victims of violence, we should not underestimate the role of men in the prevention and elimination of violence against women. Men can be agents of change and play a part as positive role models to help us achieve a culture change where violence against women is not tolerated by society. My message today is the same as it was last month's event. The onus should not be on women and girls to adopt their daily life. The responsibility should be on the perpetrators who change their behaviours. Perpetrators must be held accountable for their actions. The Welsh Government is expected to launch its new strategy of consultation imminently, and we will ensure that all comments and ideas that are shared with us this afternoon are fed into the public consultation that will take place on the draft strategy. And now I will hand over to Joyce for her opening comments. Diolch, Joyce.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you, Arion, and you've given us lots of food for thought. And I want to thank everybody for joining us here today, and it is a vital meeting. I am looking forward to hearing from all our speakers and then hearing questions and hopefully solutions from the rest of you. We've got a lot of expertise here in this virtual room. I want the findings, as Arion has already said, from today's meeting to be fed into that consultation for the Welsh Government's new national strategy. For me, this has been a frustratingly long-term commitment. 17 years ago, we held the first white ribbon candlelit service at Llandaf Cathedral. 14 years ago, when I was elected to the Senedd, we continued promoting the white ribbon campaign, and we recruited our first Welsh white ribbon ambassador, former rugby international Derwyn Jones, in 2008. The WNI, as you've just heard, teamed up in 2012 to launch the Not In My Name campaign. And since then, it has impacted communities across Wales, with male ambassadors recruited in workplaces, choirs, sport clubs, and just about everywhere else, because we all know that WI really does reach those parts that others cannot. Yet despite all of those efforts, we are still here today trying to shift the dial on gender-based violence. At least 112 women have been killed by men so far this year in the UK. Some of those have been horrific murders, and we have to stop that. We also have to stop what is regarded by some as casual misogyny. It's never casual, it's always misogyny. I recently talked at the Senedd about how I had my drink spike back in the early 80s, and I was fortunate that I had a friend with me who got me home safely. I had time to recover physically, but for too many others, it is a horrific crime that impacts on the rest of their lives. Learning how to protect our drinks is crucial, but wouldn't it be good if we could deal effectively with the people who are spiking them? Maybe Becky and Ben will touch on this from a university perspective. I want to pay tribute to every single male ambassador for the work they do to change behaviours. It's easy to talk about it in an abstract, but it's much harder to live it. The white ribbon promise is to never commit, excuse, or remain silent about male violence against women. And that can only happen when we challenge ingrained attitudes that some friends and colleagues could consider banter. I'm interested to hear the challenges that Cairo has faced rolling out white ribbon work in Cardiff, and also how Mark is finding answers to the simple question, I love it, what can I do? Also, I want to hear how James is working for healthy relationships in athletics, and I hope more ambassadors will come forward to play their part in tackling violence against women and girls. Most of you here today have been engaged in this task for many years, and I have to take this opportunity to thank you, all of you, for your efforts. I think that's enough from me. As you know, I could talk all day about this. I wish I didn't have to talk at all about it. And I'll now hand back to Ariane to introduce our speakers. Thank you.
Sorry, Ariane, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you, Joyce, and thank you for all the work you do for the safety of all women for all these years. Thank you very much. And now it's time to hear from our 4 speakers who will set the scene. After we have heard the 4 contributions, we will move on to an open discussion to gather your views and experiences of how we can achieve a society where violence against women is not tolerated. A society where men and boys call out inappropriate behaviour and socially where women and girls can lead their daily lives without the fear of violence, abuse or harassment. And a warm welcome to our first speaker, James Williams. He's Chief Executive Officer at the Welsh Athletics. Chris O'Mawr. Welcome, James.
Thank you, and hopefully everyone can see the screen. As mentioned, my name is James Williams, Chief Exec of Welsh Athletics, and just a little bit about the governing body. We are the governing body for athletics and all running activities across Wales. 14,000 plus members, plus 2,500 active volunteers across way over 100 clubs and a couple of hundred social running groups as well. Over 150,000 people take part in some of our licensed events every year, and we also fund park runs. We've funded over 50 park runs, including 2 in prisons in Wales, and we've seen the number of people registered to take part in park runs expand significantly to way over 150,000 registered runners across Wales. Despite the challenges of COVID, one of the unique things for our sport, despite the fact all our facilities were closed, the number of people who took up running during the lockdown period grew exponentially. Month on month, Sport Wales ran a series of surveys to, I guess, attempt to indicate the impact on physical activity. But what we did see was the number of people running increasing month on month, and close to 20% of the adult population were actively running every single week. And that's not just within adults. We've seen it historically within the various national surveys that Sport Wales and Welsh Government run, that the number of participants in jogging and running activities across Wales have been growing year on year. What some people might not know is back in 2016, Welsh Athletics established a social running programme. We wanted to create new avenues for individuals to get involved in our sport, and maybe those who weren't ready to come into a formal athletics club, they wanted to join something a bit more social and a bit more accessible for the everyday runner. So we established the Run World social running programme. And some of our aims and objectives were about establishing the running community and a place for people to get guidance, support for the everyday runner. But one of the key aspects we wanted to focus on was to address the equality imbalance on the number of people running. And back in 2016, we saw there's about a 5 or 6% difference between the numbers of males and females running in the active adult survey, now part of the unified survey. And one of our key objectives was to readdress that balance, and of course to highlight the physical and mental well-being benefits that running provides, and effectively create a network of opportunities where everybody, no matter of ability or where they're based, could have access to a running opportunity. And what we have seen since that period is huge growth in the number of runners, but more importantly, a huge growth in the number of female runners. And we're at a point now, 4 or 5 years down the road, where the number of females that are members of Welsh Athletics is more than the number of males. And of the 2,000 coaches, about 1,400 are run leaders, and a large majority of them are female leaders. And the number of growths in female-only running groups has been absolutely superb. And we have some incredible examples of not just running groups, but real social communities. The likes of She Runs Cardiff and Dolly Mixtures are communities where females can come together and exercise at their own pace and their own kind of way, but create a community of support and a community where everyone is working together to improve the health of the nation. But as has been highlighted as part of the intros, COVID saw a number of instances where female athletes of all ages and abilities were coming forward and highlighting some of the challenges they were facing, and some of the harassment that they were facing during while they were exercising. And one of the things I guess that I'm actually quite proud about is that this movement of highlighting this type of behaviour started here in Wales, and a number of Welsh athletes and a number of Welsh Athletics employees were some of the first to go public with their heavy concerns. And that did create a movement where more and more female athletes and more female elite athletes were coming forward, highlighting some of the challenges that they had faced and some of the harassment that they had faced. But of course, this isn't just a COVID issue. This has been in place for a very, very long time. And Runners World did a large-scale survey in recent months, and nearly 2/3 of all female runners, and bearing in mind that running effectively is the largest participation sport in the UK, and certainly the largest participation sport in Wales, you've got 2/3 of the females, which are also the dominant part of that participant group, are being harassed every single week while they're running. Just highlight some of the challenges that we as society and we as a sport face. And back in 2018 and early 2019, we started to work with a campaign with South Wales Police to call out some of this bad behaviour, to call out some of the harassment that all runners were facing. And it isn't just around sexual harassment; it's around the heckling and the wolf whistling and the runners feeling uncomfortable and unsafe to exercise, to do the thing that they love doing. And we've also worked with a couple of local authorities to establish some running opportunities and some running networks within athletic stadiums to almost create a feeling of a safe environment to enable people to carry on exercising. And we've recently completed a program in Merthyr and about to start a Couch to 5K women's only program in Oakdale. But these activities are being rolled out across Wales. And throughout the lockdown period, we wanted to continue to highlight the benefits of running and to encourage more and more people to continue their journey towards physical and mental health improvements through our exercise. And the future for us, we want to continue the growth in female running. We want to continue seeing more female leaders being created. We want to continue seeing more female-only running groups being established up and down the country. And we want to highlight those areas of best practice. We want to highlight the running champions that are working within their communities and inspiring others around them. But we also want to use that platform to continue to highlight the challenges. We saw, as I mentioned, during the COVID months, we saw a number of very public stories in national press, but we want to ensure that this aspect continues to be advocated, and we want to continue to use the sport to highlight those challenges. And as part of that, we want to work across departments within Welsh governments to explore ways that we can change the culture within the way people perceive exercise. And we want to get to a point where when you see groups of females running, you admire them for what they're doing, not call them out around some of the catcalling and harassment that we've seen historically. And as part of that, we want to continue to work with Welsh Government, continue to work with Sport Wales, all the local authorities, but also the various police forces up and down the country to continue to highlight this challenge. And ultimately, we want to make our streets safe to exercise. And we want to establish the use of some of the active travel networks for safe running routes as well. And ultimately, and there's been a wonderful campaign led by a large social running group across South Wales, we want to reclaim our streets. We want to get to a point where our streets are the places where people can exercise day in, day out, night in, night out. So it's a very, very quick whistle-stop tour from myself, and hopefully that's okay. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, James. Thank you, James. And this is horrifying to hear about 2/3 of the women being harassed while out running. Diolch yn fawr. Anyway, I'm delighted now to welcome Ben Marrett. Ben is a student at Cardiff University and is captain of Cardiff University Football Club. Ben is from South London and is a Movember ambassador for Cardiff University this year. Ben also ran a men's mental health podcast this year with a couple of members from the football club. Croeso cynnes, a warm welcome to you, Ben.
Hi there, thank you very much. Firstly, thank you very much for having me. I'm still get blown away when I get asked to do things like this, but thank you very much. And yeah, I guess I'm just here today because in April, myself and a few of my sort of peers at university decided to run like a chaperone service just for a one night off when there was a National Rape Day scare or hoax, whatever it was. I'm not really sure how true it was, but it was quite scary in Cardiff at the time. There's a Facebook group called Overheard here. I'm not sure if anybody's a member of it. Overheard at Cardiff University. And sort of anything that goes on in the community goes into that group. And we'd seen recently like a lot of posts from young women saying about how they've been harassed or they've been chased or somebody had catcalled them. Just sort of like an ongoing thing that just seemed to get progressively worse and worse. We were in lockdown, so we didn't even know how people were outside being able to do these, do these things. But why was this such a big problem? So yeah, I remember just in my garden, one of my friends lived next door, and we had like a low wall. So we used to do some exercise in the garden, just chat over the wall, just about everything that was going on. And at that point, it wasn't very much because there wasn't anything going on. We were locked down, so we were just speaking about the problems that young women were facing. We're thinking that like there was nothing we could do, type thing. We'd bounce off to random ideas. Oh, what if we could hire a bus and we could just pick everyone up and get them home safely, and just these like random ideas that would never ever take shape. But then the National Rape Day hoax came out, and then that's when we decided, oh, we actually can do something. We can socially distance, walk people home. We can make sure we're all known. We can post ourselves online. We can bring our student IDs, sort of from like a safeguarding issue, and not sort of delve too much into that. That's sort of why I'm here. And the reason, we did that was because we as young men, we don't agree with what's going on and with what had been going on with just in our sort of like demographic, like young women, but obviously women everywhere. And sort of at the first chance we could see to sort of do something and help what was going on, we sort of took the chance because we just sort of wanted to show that like not all men are doing these things, and it's not like a women versus men type thing. It's not that at all. It's just like a few individuals, and we just wanted to show that we could all come together and sort of help out in the small way that we did, that ended up being a lot larger than we thought. But yeah, that was sort of it really. And I just think that because of that now, especially at Cardiff University, there seems to be a lot of young men that are doing things to try and help women out. There's a permanent chaperone service. The spike and drinks, lots of men are, you see them sort of in nightclubs that are asking bar people for spike covers and making sure that girls' drinks are always covered, things like that. You just see people looking out for each other a lot more, which is really nice. And I think it just creates a nice sense of community here. And we just sort of hope that from sort of today that's sort of a catalyst for sort of things going forward. But that's pretty much all I have. But yeah, thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much for your contribution, and we wish you well with all that you're doing. Diolch yn fawr iawn I ti. And our next speaker is Councillor Caro Wild. Caro is a White Ribbon Ambassador and a Cardiff Council Cabinet Member for Strategic Planning and Transport. Croeso, Caro. Welcome.
Nice to see you. Thanks everyone, and thanks for the time. I really want to thank the National Federation of Women Institute for inviting me and all the work they're doing on this, and in particular Joyce Watson for unstinting work in this. It's especially she said she shouldn't really be having to do this. It's not what we should be spending our time to do, but we do, don't we? So before I talk briefly about some of the things happening in Cardiff, and I'm going to touch on some of the transport elements as well. I think heard people talk about that in the intros. I just wanted to express sort of some of my personal views on the matter. I've been involved in the White Ribbon campaign for a while. You know, I'm just deeply concerned about the regularity, normalisation of violence and sexual abuse against women and girls by men. And whilst we're seeing lots of improvements in how this is seen by society and within our institutions, it's still a perverse society we live in that accepts these everyday behaviours by men as acceptable. I'm a White Ribbon ambassador, and you know, that's an organisation that tries to tackle issue, particularly from what men and boys do and what they can do, but recognising that we as a group are the perpetrators of the vast majority of violence against women. You know, I have tried sort of challenging myself in terms of the toxic male groups that I've been part of in the past, and you know, try and challenge that. But I think above all else, this is where I think all men can play a part. And whilst it, you know, it probably is only a small number of people doing the worst, you know, the worst crimes, it's actually, you know, toxic male environments, I believe, are where a lot of these things stem from. So we really need to challenge these behaviours, and as the women at the beginning of the call have asked us, you know, we need to call it out, and it's not a big thing for us to do as men to call these behaviours out. I'm proud that Wales and Cardiff has been taking violence against women seriously. I applaud the Welsh Government for showing real leadership in tackling domestic violence and abuse in our nation. You can see that that's been done on lots of levels. The Pioneering Violence Against Women, Domestic Abuse and Sexual Violence Act has positioned Wales as a global leader in gender equality. And what it does do is requires us all to take action. And Cardiff is definitely taking this seriously as a city. As a council, we've been engaged with the White Ribbon campaign for a number of years and achieved White Ribbon City status every year since 2014, which means we kind of put on a host of activities. We sign up to a host of commitments that we work through every year, trying to change as an institution, kind of demonstrating our commitment. You'll see things we do, you know, they may seem like little things, but you know, the flower bed we put out there every year that's, you know, been copied around the world. And every year men from across Cardiff take to the streets for the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. It's a march to raise awareness of the White Ribbon movement, to inspire dialogue and action. And whilst it might seem like a bit of a stunt, you know, men walking around in high heels, but you know, I've seen some really great conversations and reflections from that event from men. So I hope we continue to do it. But clearly no one agency or organisation can end violence against women and girls. The council relies on partnerships to get our impact really moving, make our public spaces safer for women. For Cardiff, who are the Business Improvement District, they recently launched Safe Spaces Initiative and app, and to date they've got about 40 businesses signed up. I'm sure they'll have more. The council is also working with For Cardiff again and other partners within the city's community safety partnership to apply again for purple flag status for Cardiff. That's something that's important for us. And in terms of transport, I know that public transport is a crucial area. We need to make more progress. We know that you know, creating safe spaces for women and girls in our city centre, parks, green spaces, lighting, better routes, and all these kind of things are really important. You know, more women than men use public transport, yet that isn't always borne out in terms of where investment goes, in terms of how some of the decisions are made. Safe cycling infrastructure is also very much a feminist pursuit. Studies show that many women feel safer cycling than walking past groups of men, but also the idea of supporting cycling is very much to do with those everyday local journeys, such as the school run, which are disproportionately undertaken by women. We should be investing more in those kind of journeys, as well as kind of how people commute in and out of work in their cars. We have partnered with Cardiff Bus on a Live Fear Free bus ticket campaign, printing information, numbers on the helpline on the back of bus tickets. But I guess reading all this, you know, when I read it, I just know it's not good enough, really. We need change quicker. We need system change. We also need to urgently empower more women and girls in setting these policies and laws. And that's why, you know, really applaud the brilliant organisations and people on this call that are trying to do this day in, day out, and especially the women that are pushing for change and pushing more people forward into decision-making positions and into all sort of those parts of society. But yeah, together we aspire to a society in which every woman and girl in our city has the right to live an empowered and positive life. So it's never been more urgent to address this issue head on, and I really welcome the debate today and thank everyone that's made it happen. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much, Cara, for your talk, and also for all the work you do on behalf of the White Ribbon campaign. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. And now it's to our final speaker, Mark Heckerty. Mark is a musician, creative based in Cardiff, and the father of an 18-year-old daughter. He's the co-founder of WCID, What Can I Do? An organisation that empowers men to help women feel safe. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'm very, very happy to do so. As I've said, my name is Mark Heckerty. I'm the co-founder of Wicked, What Can I Do? I'm a 50-year-old man. I'm a son, a brother, and a father of an 18-year-old daughter who's my world. And like everyone else, I'm horrified by the deaths of Sarah Everard, Sabina Nessa, and so many others. It just goes on and on. Back in March, a female friend of mine jokingly said, "What's it like being the enemy?" referring to me being a middle-aged man. Later that day, I went running when I saw a lady walking alone in my path, and I just did not know what to do. If I sped up and ran past her, it might frighten her. If I hung back, it might freak her out and frighten her. So I froze, which also looked suspicious. All I wanted to do was run past her to get home, and all she wanted to do was get to where she needed to go. I just did not know what to do. It was crazy. So I shared this story with my friend, Gary Taylor-Nair, who is a preacher, a teacher, and a survivor. She spends every day helping and supporting women who are victims of domestic abuse, collecting them from hospitals, taking them to police stations, organising safe houses for them and their children on a daily basis. We spoke for over an hour, and she told me in no uncertain terms that now is the time for men to stand up side by side with women and try to reduce violence against women and girls. And at that moment, Wicked was formed. I had no idea what to do, so I just started educating myself. Firstly, I looked for male voices working towards eradicating violence against women and girls, and they were out there, but they weren't easy to find. I found Nazir Afzal, who later became one of our patrons alongside Rachel Williams from Sutton. I also found Jackson Katz and urge everyone to look at his TED Talk, Violence Against Women, It's a Man's Problem. It was a game changer for me. I found White Ribbon, Beyond Equality, Token Man, all of whom carry out incredible work on gendered equality and ending violence against women and girls. Now, as a youngster in the 80s, I remember hearing the N-word in the schoolyard, but by the time I got to college, it became the deplorable term it is today. So something happened in that time. And I believe that we are at a point in time where we can make simple changes that will work towards reducing violence against women. As a youngster in the 80s, I was never told how I should act in a relationship or how I should treat a partner. I'm lucky because my parents have been married for 56 years and my father still treats my mother like a princess, and I'm fortunate to have that grounding. Wicked has hosted numerous roundtable events with survivors, with men under 30, with men over 30. We've spoken to leaders and campaigners of both genders, and my eyes have been opened. When I walk home at night, I only consider the holy trinity of my wallet, phone and keys and the quickest route home. As a man, I don't have to consider what I'm wearing. If anyone has been attacked on this route, how to protect myself, I don't have to worry about getting raped. I have learned that there's a long list women need to consider before walking home. I've learned that 97% will be subject to some kind of abuse, from name calling up to homicide. I've learned that over 95% of the 400,000 sexual assaults carried out in women in the UK were by men. I have personally seen the look of pain in the eyes of survivors as they shared their experiences, and now understand how they deal with this fear on a daily basis. I've also seen the look of horror on men's faces when you share these, the thought that their daughter, sister, mother, grandmother, auntie, in fact, any female in their lives has to deal with this fear of abuse throughout their lives. I'm nothing special. I'm just a normal bloke, and I have only learned this by talking and listening, not listening to respond, but listening with an intent to understand. And it's through this engagement that I began to understand that to make changes to end violence against women, men and women have to work together. We need to respect each other. We need to stand up and walk together. By listening, learning, engaging, and considering, we can make changes that prevent these attacks. Not by shouting, not by preaching, but by talking. Wicked are working on producing a nationwide campaign aimed at men over 35 to show how they can help make women feel safe. Men over 35 have a huge circle of influence. They have children, grandchildren, partners, wives, mothers, sisters, brothers, friends, and colleagues. Following that, we aim to bring workshops to male-dominated blue-collar workplaces where we will talk face-to-face with men and who will hear directly from a survivor and learn how a throwaway misogynist comment, which isn't opposed, can give the green light for a man to grab a woman and to inflict a life sentence of fear. I truly believe there's great momentum for men to stand up against women and finally make individual behavioural changes that can lead to significant reductions in violence against women. I urge you to join us or just follow our journey and talk to your male friends and family members, because we all agree that a world where women and girls feel safe has to be a better world, and we all have the power to make this happen. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Mark. Thank you very much, Mark. Isn't it a sad that it's come to that we need to teach men how to behave in front of women? I would like to extend a huge thanks to our four speakers for their excellent contribution and for setting the scene for what I'm sure will be a lively and interesting debate. Thank you, James, Ben, Caro and Mark. Diolch yn fawr I chi. And now I shall hand over to Joyce to lead the next part of the event.
Thank you. And all we need are men like you. Everyone. And I won't have to be here trying to encourage other men to join you, but that's your job, and I thank you very much for doing it. What I do want to do before we start is to thank Jane Hutt, Minister for Equalities, who has managed actually to join us today. She's managed to put in 30 minutes slot just to listen. So just let you all know that Jane is on this call, is listening, and she has really dedicated her life, as many other people on this call, to trying to do something about that. But the second part of this afternoon is handing over to all of you. We want to hear your thoughts and their experiences and how we can achieve that societal change, because Mark did it really well. That's what we're asking for. But I just want to say one thing to Ben Marrett. The whole White Ribbon event was started by students in Canada, so it's coming full circle again, and it was young men who felt much like Ben does and all the other men here, that they had to do something. So the questions I want you to think about are: how can we achieve societal change to end violence against women and girls? How are we going to engage men and boys to challenge the attitudes? That's not easy if you're on your own. And change behaviours that contribute to violence against women. How can we shift the responsibility? And I think this is the key, which is still on women to adapt their daily lives, you've heard about that, for a period of violence, to putting the responsibility back on the perpetrator. So if you want like to speak, but ask that you put your name in the chat box. You don't need to include your comments or questions, just your name, and then I will invite you to ask your question or make your comments, and hopefully I won't miss anybody. I find it incredible that nobody wants to say anything. So I'd be surprised I can't see any messages. All right, I can see somebody now. Gwendolyn Sturrock wants to speak.
Oh yes, Joyce, I thought as there seemed to be quite a quiet period there, I'd jump in and yeah, thank those speakers. If people don't know me, I work for Welsh Women's Aid, which is a national charity working to end violence against women and domestic abuse in Wales. And first of all, I wanted to make sure that everybody on the call knows that there is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week helpline in Wales. That if anything that you've been affected by what you've heard, the Live Fear Free helpline is available and there for anybody that needs support. And I'll pop the number and everything in the chat after I finish talking. I really welcome what everyone said. I think for me, you know, it's great to see men stepping up and thinking about what they do, but I think this is about a whole society and a whole community's perspective that we need to talk about how we actually prevent this from happening in the first place. How, I think I welcomed Carol Wilde saying that it's a systemic change that we need to see. And it's a whole societal shift and a cultural change that we start from the premise that women have the human rights to grow up and live in a society without harassment, abuse and violence, whether that's on the street, whether that's in our homes or whether that's in our workplace. And that's not happening now. And I really welcome the fact that, you know, this week we'll also see information coming out on the RSE Code of Practice and Guidance from the Welsh Government. I think we need to think about how important those prevention tools from an early age happen within the communities and go on throughout. That learning goes on throughout in universities and then beyond into the workplace and across our communities. And I wondered, you know, we see things about having statements for White Ribbon Day and the International Day to eliminate violence against women this week, but those are one-off a year statements or events. And I wondered whether anybody could talk about what they are doing on a daily basis and in investing in and enabling children and young people to grow up in a space where they understand, respect, consent, and actually aim to end violence against women and girls.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. And I think those questions are thought-provoking. We'll wait and see if we get some answers. Can I move now to Carol Harris? And then on to Anthea Sully from White Ribbon.
Thank you, Joyce. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carol Harris from Have and Cymru. Just to support one of the things that Gwendolyn said, really. One of the projects that we run in Have and Cymru is a project called Spectrum. It is a Welsh government-funded project that educates primary and secondary pupils on domestic abuse by discussing healthy relationships. And I think it's really important that we start from when they're in school or from when they're young, so that they grow up understanding a lot better in terms of, the responsibility is not solely on the women or on the girls, but the boys have a role to play, a lot of responsibility actually on their shoulders. Where I was going is wouldn't it be great if we expand that type of project? Sorry, I have to apologize about my voice because I've had a sore throat over the weekend. But anyway, I hope I'm still coming out clear. Wouldn't it be great if we can expand that to further education like colleges and universities? It's great what Ben is doing in their group, but that is something that they created themselves. It's not something that I suppose every college has in terms of an activity or even part of their education, really. And at the moment, to my knowledge, this Spectrum project is only in Wales, which is great for us. But I think it would be good if we can expand that outside Wales, like in other parts of the United Kingdom, because that just brings everything together, really. The Domestic Abuse Act is now expanded to England and Wales, not just in Wales. I know we are ahead because our Valde SB Act has been here earlier, but I just think that Spectrum project, or at least the concept of that, is something that we should push for. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to Anthea.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, everybody, for welcoming me to this event. I'm Anthea Sully. I'm the Chief Executive of White Ribbon. It's it's really good to be here again, and to see some familiar faces. And I think for us as an organisation to be have survived last year, very well aware of how difficult it's been for women to survive that year, many women, as an organisation, so that we can continue to do the work. There has been a real shift in the responses that we've been getting as an organisation over recent months, because of the high profile murders, but also of just a larger awareness, which I think built on people's greater awareness of domestic abuse last year. We've had overwhelming amounts of contact through our website, numbers of people making the White Ribbon Promise, many more organisations getting involved in our accreditation programme and in other ways, been delivering a lot of training to workplaces. So I haven't got a figure for this year in terms of how many people work for a White Ribbon accredited organisation, and I really don't have the Welsh figures, but I can get them and I will let you know at some point. But at the end of last year, 180,000 people were working for a White Ribbon accredited organisation across England and Wales, and that's a significant number of people, because we are looking for wholesale culture change. And one of the places where people can encounter an environment and behaviour that is not sexist, that is pushing for equality, that calls out, calls it out when people are telling sexist jokes, disrespectful jokes to women, is actually in the workplace. And if we transform the culture within the workplace, that actually then goes out to wider communities. It's very fundamental change that can happen there. So this week, White Ribbon Day is a focus for the year, and I think it's helpful. It's a real sign for us, culmination of a really huge amount of extra input that's been coming through, a significantly larger number of men who've been coming forward, finding their way through, but also a massive impetus has happened that's going to take us well through next year, and really make a very big difference into the reach that we want to have and is needed. I echo who spoke before about the need to be in schools and with education. That's something that we would love to do more of, and many other organisations who are involved would want to do more of, and that's still very poorly funded, and so necessary. That's one of our challenges, and we do have some resources that are going to be available in the new year. There is, just in terms of, as I finish, I think this is a sign of hope, and that there will be some change, and that attitudes are shifting and culture is shifting. We have sent out considerably more than twice the number of white ribbons that we sent out in 2019, before the pandemic. People are coming to us. We haven't had the resources to massively promote that. That is something I think that is a good sign. I hope every single person who receives one wears it and talks about what it means. And thank you all who carry that message on throughout the year, and throughout a year and through the years, because together we can really prevent violence before it starts, which is what we all want to do.
Thank you, Anthony. The next three speakers are going to go in this order. Francis Beecher, Joe Galaska, Unite the Union, and Viv Lang from NSPCC.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a very quick point really on the back of some of the speakers, just to say that healthy relationships is so important, and to echo the call for funding. Llamai run some healthy relationship workshops that have been developed by young people, by young women and young men, about what is appropriate and what is acceptable. And it really should be across every single local authority and every single school in Wales. And I just also wanted to make the point that women and girls absolutely must lead this agenda. And it was really good to hear from the previous speaker about a fantastic project, but to hear him say about listening to survivors and asking, you know, what do I need to do? What do men need to do? And being guided by women, because we need men and boys to be led by women and allow women to educate men on what they need right now. And I just wanted to say thank you for that. And I hope that that message will be very loud and clear.
Thank you. Over to Jo now.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Anthea said about workplaces and the fact that the unions, well, Unite last week at our Women's Week, we made sure it's a priority for our union, and I know other unions in Wales. Just an observation really, as we're calling for home working, what Unite is calling for is that risk assessments do reach the home as well, whilst we're not in work. And we're still calling for 10 days paid leave for women and women and survivors of domestic violence. So that is still very much on our priority list. And the other thing was, we've done a mass survey of hospitality workers, including those in Wales, called Not on the Menu. And again, I'll share that with you, Joyce. It's really shocking, women not being able to get home safe. But we're campaigning to make sure that whilst we're in work, it's safe, and that women and our members don't suffer abuse at work or when leaving work. So just to say, for the unions, it's a priority, and we want to keep working with you, but just think the home working message to some isn't necessarily a welcome message.
Thank you, and I look forward to discussing that with you, Jo. Not on the menu. And over to Viv.
Hello. Well, I just want to say I also welcome the White Ribbon Day, and it's been really refreshing to hear the men speakers, speaking at the event. So thank you very much. I want to sort of add to a point made earlier about healthy relationship education for pupils. I mean, we all know it is absolutely crucial, and obviously we've been lucky. We've had Spectrum funded to input into schools, and that's been really valuable. What I just want to sort of mention now, though, of course, in Welsh Government, we're going to have a new curriculum, and in that new curriculum, relationships and sexuality education is going to be mandatory for all 3 to 16-year-olds, and no children can be withdrawn. So I think Welsh Government have been brave, and that's really positive. Obviously, the next steps, the implementation of that is really crucial. So we've got to have really good, strong guidance. And then also we've got to have expertly well-trained, confident workforce. So the teachers who are going to be tasked with delivering this new RSE curriculum really need the training and the building of the skills to be able to deliver that appropriately, because otherwise we will miss that opportunity for challenging behaviours, traditional ways that some people say and respond to different things. So it's really absolutely crucial, if we're going to fulfill the ambition in relationships and sexuality education, that we have really well-trained, skilled workforce, confident to deliver healthy relationship education, and the time and the support to be able to do this well. And I need to just go into one of my other calls, which is also really, really important, or one of NSPCC's other calls. At the moment, we've got the groundbreaking Vawdr SV Act, but we've got a lack of services for children and young people across Wales. Some local areas have got really well-established child recovery services, but if a child grows up with parental domestic abuse, it's absolutely crucial that they have the recovery services so that they can explore what they can get over the trauma, but also explore what a healthy relationship is. So our other call is that the dearth of children and young people, domestic abuse victims, that they have the support they need, and that the Vawdr SV partnerships commission that in every local area. Thank you for me having my little rant, but it's really good to be able to contribute. Thank you.
You don't have a rant, you have facts, and they're well founded and well grounded. And that's what everybody here today, that's what everybody's doing. Have I missed anybody? I think I've gone down the list. I think so. I don't think I've missed anyone. If I have missed anyone, now's your chance to say so. So we've got these questions. I didn't expect that we'd answer them all today, but we definitely want to feed them back in. So, because now's our chance. That's what this is all about. And I don't know if anybody is on this call. I don't like putting people on the spot, but if anybody's on this call that works in youth justice, because I just wonder if anybody is here that works with youth justice or youth that have just come out of the justice system, about what we all know, and that is we're concentrating on schools, we're looking at colleges, but an awful lot of excluding, not in education, employment or training young people. And all the stats tell us that they're there, very many of them, as a consequence of having lived with domestic abuse and violence in the home, and that it becomes cyclical, because it's all those individuals know what we know we tend to copy unless someone tells us and helps us to see otherwise. So is there anybody, if there isn't anybody here, I'll make a point of contacting somebody, because I think that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to capture all voices, and I think that's critical. So if there is nobody else left to speak, then I will have to draw the session to an end, I suppose. And thank you, and I really do mean this, for all your interesting, honest and thought-provoking contributions, particularly the speakers. And I think it's great that each year we get more and more men who want to speak, who want to be involved, who are involved, because that's the only way through all of this. We will feed what we've heard today into the Welsh Government. Jane Heckerty is on the call, so she'll have heard quite a bit of it. And the hard work of changing in great attitudes is something that we can all do. And we have to do it now. We cannot, year on year, read out horrendous stats, quite frankly. 112 lives, immediate lives that have been affected. But you could multiply that probably by tenfold of the true extent of the effect that will have on individuals. So it's my job now to hand back to Ariane, who will make the closing remarks. Thank you. And I hope I'll see many of you tonight at 6 o'clock, out in what will be a very clear sky with stars shining and no rain.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Joyce. On behalf of the NFWI, I would like to extend my huge thanks once more to the speakers and also to you all for your individual contributions. We will be producing a report of this event and will capture the contributions we have heard, and then we will be sharing them during the coming weeks. We will also be sharing the reports with Jane Hunt, MS, the Minister for Social Justice, who's joined us today, and it's nice to see you. And also as part of the constitution period on the new national statutory. I'd also like to thank the staff of the Welsh office for all the brilliant work you do, especially Sarah, our public affairs officer, for her technical support. Without her, events like this would not be possible. Diolch yn fawr, Sarah, thank you very much. And to end, I hope very much to see some of you will be able to join us this evening on the steps of the Senate at 6 p.m. for the candlelit vigil to show solidarity for victims and support survivors of violence against women across the world. Diolch yn fawr I chi gyd. Thank you all very much. And the event will now end. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
You.